I've gone officially on the record as saying that none other than savages and necromancers use keyboards with no numpads. Dun dun dun! Because what kind of animal wants to type numbers in a horizontal line next to each other when you can have something as amazing and convenient as a numpad? The thing is though, I was wrong. Tenkeyless keyboards are amazing. Before we get into the video, I just want to point out that today I am wearing my Gary trigger t-shirt again. I don't understand it, but every time I wear this t-shirt in a video, there's at least one triggered Gary in the comment section. So this is for you, Gary. Now before I tell you about the amazing and very reasonably priced mechanical Tenkeyless keyboard that I found on Amazon, I need to tell you a story about how I realized the error of my ways. From the beginning of my gaming career, I've always used fairly high DPI settings for my mouse, around 1600 depending on the game that I was playing and depending on the mouse I was using. I always liked the fact that with fairly small motions of my hand, I could get pretty big in-game movements. With games like Battlefield, this seems to work really well, and I didn't ever have any issues with accuracy, especially over a longer distance. I recently got hopelessly addicted to Escape from Tarkov. Now if you haven't played that game before, if you die, it really sucks, so your accuracy is extremely important. And one thing that I noticed was that when it comes to a longer distance with things like iron sights, I was really struggling to get those very important headshots. And that became especially frustrating when I was watching Shroud play the game, that smug bastard. He just immediately lines up all the shots and just gets a headshot every time. Now I know that comparing myself to Shroud is really stupid, considering that he is essentially aimbot with legs. The thing is though, watching him kind of correct for shots at a longer distance made me feel like there was something wrong with my mouse setup, because you know what they say, the best sportsmen always blame their tools. Before all of the people that watch me stream on Twitch comment down below how much I suck at playing video games, I just want to say that there's a big difference between streaming Escape from Tarkov and actually playing it on your own. Really, the pressure is quite hectic. He says, clearly blaming his audience for the fact that he sucks. After doing some research, I realized that the high DPI settings of my mouse may be the problem, because it seems like most pro gamers use a DPI of around 400, and that's why they're always flailing their right arm around. Now obviously, that's not the only reason I'm not very good at aiming. The fact that I suck also clearly plays a big role, but maybe changing the DPI settings of my mouse would help. And honestly, that makes complete sense to me. Because if very small movements of your mouse translate to massive motions on screen, then it becomes really difficult to micro-correct your aim because, well, any movement translates to a fairly reasonably sized movement on screen. Whereas if you have to flail your arm around like a madman to get big movements, then you have more space on the mouse pad for micro-correcting your aim. Or at least in theory and in my head, that makes sense. So what I did is I changed the DPI settings on my mouse and, well, I started dying a lot because it takes quite a lot of getting used to. But after a couple of hours, the penny started to drop and my headshot rate started climbing in Tarkov. I'm at a point now where about 50% of my kills are down to headshots, which is very important in Tarkov because, you know, the longer the enemy is alive, the more likely it is that you're gonna die. Now I hear you responding to that last bit of story with one of two things. The first one is, Dawid, how did you not know that pro players usually use lower DPI settings? I thought everyone knew that. And the second thing you may be saying is, what does all of this crap have to do with your keyboard? When you're having to flail your arm around like that, space becomes a bit of an issue. Now this is fine, all you do is you move your keyboard a bit further away and then you have more space on your mouse pad. And yes, I do realize I need a new mouse pad, it's pretty worn down. If you have one of these massive aircraft carrier keyboards like the Corsair K95 Platinum, if you move it a bit further to make more space for your arm flailing, then your posture becomes quite seal flippery, and it just seems like a bit of a recipe for a rotator cuff injury. Playing like this is not very comfortable. And that's when I started looking for a smaller keyboard so that I could sit with both my arms right in front of me, because that just makes more sense, and then I'll have a lot of space to flail as much as I want. After making this very obvious realization, I decided to veer quite drastically out of my comfort zone away from my beloved aircraft carrier keyboard. Now, considering the fact that I just wanted to experiment with Tenkeyless keyboards, I didn't want to spend too much money on a super fancy one like a ducky keyboard or something like that, because what if I didn't like them and I had to run back to my aircraft carrier keyboards? I wanted a fairly cheap mechanical keyboard, but I still wanted it to have genuine Cherry MX red switches, because I know that I really like the feeling of those. And it also means that I can switch out the keycaps to some aftermarket double shot PBT ones. And then, after looking around a bit, I found the Hyper X Alloy FPS, which is actually one of the cheapest mechanical keyboards that comes with genuine Cherry MX switches. And it's actually got some pretty awesome features. I really like this keyboard. The keyboard itself is very plain, so it means whatever keycaps you put on it change the character of the keyboard quite drastically. Another thing that's really awesome about it is that it has a detachable cable, which is amazing at this price point, so it means that you can buy kind of different cables. I like this because the cable that it comes with isn't the best. It's a braided cable, but it's very stiff and it's not really malleable enough, although it really does get the job done. Considering the cost of the keyboard, it's a pretty nice cable. It comes with the Cherry MX red switches that I want, with red backlighting. It is a shame that it doesn't have RGB backlighting because, you know, I don't want my keyboard looking like an S&M club. So basically all I did was change out the keycaps for non-translucent ones, so then I just turn off the backlight and it's not an issue anyway. It's not like I'm playing in like a Welsh cave, so it doesn't really matter that the keys aren't backlit. The only real problem that I have with this keyboard is the fact that it doesn't have a dedicated volume wheel. Although, considering the form factor, obviously it doesn't have one. And you still have a function key for it, so it's not that big a deal. Now, as you can see with all of the B-roll, I did change out the keycaps to a set that I found on Amazon for about 29 Canadian dollars, so they're actually pretty cheap. I really like the way they look, and they have that really nice double shot PBT texture to it, which is the main reason I like that manufacturing process. The stock keycaps that come with the keyboard are pretty good, especially considering the price. However, they're very smooth, which I don't like. I really do prefer the kind of rougher texture of the double shot PBT. The thing is though, changing out the keycaps on the keyboard is not a big deal because the keyboard is so cheap. Even with the keycaps, I still spent just under 100 Canadian dollars for the entire setup, which I'm pretty pleased about. So now that I have the combination of the non-rotator cuff injury inducing flipper stance with the lower DPI, I actually do feel like I am more accurate and I am more dangerous in Escape from Tarkov than before. And it actually makes it more comfortable to game for extended periods because you're not sitting in a weird position. You have your hands pretty much right in front of you. With that, let me know in the comment section below if you liked my fairly ridiculous story over the course of this video. Let me know what you think of this keyboard if you have one, because I really love it. I'm super happy with it. And with that, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel, follow me on whatever social media you're interested in. I'll have them all linked in the description below. If you want to see me die on stream, I'm going to stream a bit later today, so check that out. It's also in the description below. And yeah, until the next video, bye-bye.